the video there cut off. So here we are. Um, just gonna kind of doing this thing of musings, just something I'm gonna start doing on Tuesday nights. And yeah, I'm kid free on Tuesday night, and I figured I'd just try to offer up a little bit more content for Revolution. But this is kind of like a night without an agenda. Usually I'm going to just talk about things. And so originally I was going to talk tonight about, I was going to talk a little bit about John Lydon, but I think we'll say that for another day and another rant. But tonight I'm just going to talk a little bit about grace and some thoughts I recently had on grace, which I'll probably work into the talk next week. But we'll see where that goes. Man, it is always raining here in Seattle. You know, it's crazy. So for me, the idea of grace is one of the ideas I've been toying with for a couple years now, is grace as a form of anarchy. Something that does not obey the rules or the regulations of any one group. And for me, that's very important. Very, very, very important. I was writing some notes down earlier, and I was just writing like, it is grace as anarchy. It is for you, and you can give it, but it isn't up to you, and it's not only for you, so you don't have to give it for them to receive it. But when you do, it belongs to you that much more. And the idea of giving grace away gives you a greater experience with grace. It's quite strange, I think, for everyone. That no one gets it. That there's no special one. That it's the idea and the concept of grace is never enforced by public opinion or by the populace, the popular thinking of the day. It's nothing that grace is not PC. It's not for the special few, as some would say. It's sorry. So it has no rules. It has no regulations. It's something that belongs to us, that is freely given to us, that we can receive and accept, and we can choose to forgive others and show them grace. And we can also choose not to do that as well. But it's not up to us whether they receive grace or not. You see what I'm saying? Like, grace isn't ours to give. We are not the grace deciders. I think the one area we may be able to somewhat decide within grace, even though it might just be by just saying I'm going to ignore it, is by saying I don't want it. But I think that would not be ultimately experiencing grace. And I think who puts it really well is Paul Tillich in his book, The Shaking of the Foundations. And it's really a great book. And it's a collection of Tillich's sermons and talks over the time. And I highlighted a little area that I don't think I often cover when I've talked about this before, and I think I want to do a teaching series on a few of Tillich's talks as well. I mean, if you're not familiar with Paul Tillich, he was one of the greatest theologians and philosophers of the 20th century. Obviously, not every denomination is going to agree with that, I remember some folks in the more Calvinist, neo-Calvinist congregations were uncomfortable back 10 years ago when they were actually listening to my stuff. But here's the idea that I think Tillich puts into great words. It says, in this light, the grace we perceive, or the power of grace in our relation to others and ourselves. We experience the grace of being able to look frankly into the eyes of another, the miraculous grace of reunion, life with life. We experience the grace of understanding each other's words. We understand not merely the literal meaning of the words, but also that which lies behind them, even when we are harsh or angry. And I think the cool thing about what Tillich's saying is like we can see the humanity in others' words, even if we're harsh and angry. Hegel talked about us experiencing humanity when two humans come together, when two people argue in person, that they're able to see the humanity of one another. I think like people like Dr. King, which I talk about a lot as well, he was like always trying to expose people to their humanity, and he was trying to expose people to the other's humanity. I mean, I really do feel like part of King's purpose and call and service was, to save white people, so white people would see the humanity of their African American brothers and sisters, so they would see the humanity of others through nonviolence, and that we would live together in a shared humanity. And that's something we forget. And it feels like we're in a time where now we just have more lines in the sand. Now it's sexuality, race, religion, politics. Everybody we just keep putting up these boxes and these lines of like, well, if you don't meet up to this, or if you're not this. And so each side has their own reasons why they feel that they don't belong or others don't belong. And, I think that's why Paul the Apostle in the book of Galatians talks about, realizing we're all one, realizing our humanity. And that's what Christ was constantly doing. He's like, Paul was saying there's neither Jew nor Gentile. Jesus is going out to the woman at the well who was a Gentile and talking to her and talking to all these people and eating with people from different backgrounds and showing them their humanity. And that was often what Jesus's encounter was with Jesus. It wasn't so much the healing or a miracle or things like that. It was the helping them they felt like they were seen. I think that's what you see with Matthew's house, and when they're in the tax collection stuff, is Matthew sees seen as a human for the first time. He doesn't just see seen as a Roman sympathizer. And so Tillich grabs this and says, the miraculous grace of reunion, as we experience it, we understand it not merely in the means of the words, but also that which lies behind, even in harsh and angry words. For even then there is a longing to break through the walls of separation. And I think we often don't see grace as about disagreeing, and that's why I talk a lot about disagreeing well and trying to, disagree compassionately and not take cheap shots and not hurt people and not knock them when they're down. It's just this idea of seeing the other's humanity. That we're both longing to break down walls. So when we see things like we see protests, usually what we've seen is the breaking down of communication and the breaking down of people willing to show each other grace. And that's a tough thing for a lot of folks, for people to break down, so you get to these places where we're so angry and we're so hurt, and we've gotten to the place where recognizing one another's humanity doesn't work, and we often go to war with each other. But Tillich goes on to say, he's like, for even then, there is a longing to break through the walls of separation. We experience the grace of being able to accept the life of another, even if it be hostile or harmful to us. Through grace, we know that it belongs to the same ground to which we belong and by which we have been accepted. We experience this grace, which is able to overcome the tragic separation of the sexes, of the generations, of the nations, of the races, and even the utter strangeness between man and nature. Sometimes grace appears in all these separations to reunite us with those whom we belong, for life belongs to life. And so, my musing tonight, if you will, my thought tonight is, grace is anarchy. Grace works. And if we can find a way to break into that moment of wanting to see, like, what am I want? Why am I angry? Why am I scared? What is it that I want to break through? What is it that I really want to accomplish through this argument, through this? Where is the humanity here? How do I lay my humanity bare in order to see the other lay their humanity bare? I mean, that was the concept of nonviolence, is that they were hoping, as they were, being nonviolent and being beaten in the streets, is that these people who are beating them and they're not fighting back would go, oh my God, what kind of human being am I? What am I doing? What's happening here? And see their humanity, and see the persons that they were hurting's humanity, and also at the same time recognize their own humanity and see that joint moment of humanity. And I think that's the problem that we have a lot in society today, is that we don't want to focus on that grace that makes us all humans. And so we unfortunately find different ways to separate ourselves. And either we do certain things to ourselves to separate ourselves from others, or others look at us and say, well, you look different, or you seem different, and we do that to separate. And there's got to be a group of us, there's got to be a movement of people who say, I don't want to be separate anymore. I don't want to be in a tribe anymore. The only tribe I want to be in is the human tribe, and then beyond that, the living tribe of humanity. And I'm not saying we're all going to join hands and sing Kumbaya, because that's just not how human nature works. We're always going to have disagreements, and probably very tough disagreements. But I'm thinking the right step in the direction is learning about grace, and learning that even if you do not bestow grace to another, or do not feel like those people are worthy of your grace, of your bestowing of grace, that they already have grace by that same power that's giving you grace, and that power comes from the ground of being. And that's what Paul called God. So, yeah, there you go. It's there's your grace. There's my thoughts on grace today is love people, find people where they're at, recognize that. And, I will say this is the more you are able to give grace to others, the more you will find it for yourself. And the more you find it for yourself, it's like a vicious, wonderful cycle. The more you'll find it for others. And when you're able to accept yourself for who you are, and as a being, you'll be able to even live with fact when people are disappointed, and when you've hurt others, and when people don't necessarily approve of you, you can live in that going, well, I know where I am, and that's not about me, that's about them. And allowing them to have grace even in those moments, and allowing them to feel their emotions and see their emotions. But it requires a little bit of patience on each side. So that's my musings for tonight. Like I said, I wasn't going to do really long talks on Tuesday night. Sometimes it'll probably be 10, 15 minutes, and other nights, I'll probably go over, maybe I'll talk about punk rock or something like that. But I just wanted to say, give Revolution a group of us to get together and just have something else during the week, just to, do. And so here's a little extra. So right now I'm just calling this Musings, and we'll see where it goes from there. So thanks for being here for the first one, and enjoy your Wednesday tomorrow. Is it Wednesday? Is it Wednesday? It's Tuesday today, right? Yeah. So tomorrow, my son's graduating from kindergarten, so I'm very excited about that. All right, everybody. Good night. Bye-bye.